How's it going, everyone? Wayne the Unknown here, and welcome back to Geeking Out, where we basically discuss everything nerdy geek related. I am doing another segment tonight for Get to Know the Actor, and I'm joined here by horror actor Justin Welborn. How you doing, Justin?
I'm great, man. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. Again, thank you for coming on, and also shout out to Ken and Ash of the Sledgehammer Horror Podcast for recommending you, man.
Yeah, man, they're great. Appreciate you having me.
Oh, of course. And so you've played in movies such as the anthology horror VHS, Justified, Final Destination. Like you've played in quite a bit.
I've been working as long as they'll let me, man.
So to begin, how long have you been acting for, and what made you decide that it was something you wanted to do?
You know, I was talking about this the other day. I've been acting since I was like 9 or 10 years old. My mom got me into it in it was like a summer play, something to do. She always knew that I was imaginative and running around and making up stories and stuff like that. And so it quickly became one of my favorite things because it was approved and there was a stage and people clapped and you got to create the world as you wanted to see it. And yeah, I've kind of always been doing this. And I mean, when I went to college, I knew I wanted to major in drama, and it's just been kind of a lifelong pursuit. I've had a few periods where I've taken breaks and gone and done other things and other pursuits, but for the most part, everything's always brought me back to this. And for a long time, I thought pretty much stage theatrical stuff was going to be what I was going to stick with. And then we were making independent movies with a lot of the people that we were doing theater with, and we were kind of just in the discussion of it. And then eventually it just kind of folded into one another. One thing became the next, and then I made the movie The Signal, and we went out to Sundance, and our little independent movie sold for a lot of money. And I came back, and I'm laying bricks in the cold weather, and I was like, I have a degree in this. I'm really good at this. We just sold this movie for several million dollars,
Might as well put
so
it to good use.
might as well like start pursuing something else. And the day that The Signal actually came out in a few theaters around the US was the day that I got Final Destination. And that was the sort of thing that, you've got to listen to the little messages. If you don't, you're definitely on the wrong path, or at least that's how I felt. And that's taken me to here, all the way from Atlanta, Georgia to Los Angeles and everywhere else that I've filmed. So
Oh, so mind telling me a little bit about the Signal and the role you played in that film?
sure. The Signal is a film that basically is right around New Year's Eve, and this mysterious signal goes out over all televised devices and kind of brings out the best and the worst in people, brings up their greatest fears, and drives them to murderous rages and passions. And I played a character named Ben, and it's actually one of the only real heroic love roles that I've gotten to play, which is funny because it's one of my very first film roles. And yeah, I mean, I think it's a very human horror movie in its way. There's nothing particularly other than the signal itself, very supernatural about it. It's all about the inner passions that are brought out that bring the best and the worst. And I end up searching through the mysterious city of Terminus, which was one of Atlanta's first names, and looking for Maya, the love of my life, even though she has a husband. We've been carrying on this affair, and yeah, it's a twisted little movie. It's a lot of fun, man. It's still one of my favorite films that I've ever done. So
Nice. And speaking of back in 2014, your first major motion picture role was in Final Destination.
yeah, that was an interesting one because I actually was auditioning from Atlanta, and the callbacks were in New Orleans, and they were in 2 days. And I didn't have a lot of money, and I was considering just like blowing it off. And once again, it's interesting. I always call my mom my first agent because she's always given me some of the best advice when it comes down to it. yeah, called her up and told her about the gig, and she was like, "Well, if you don't go, you can't get it, right?" And I was like, "Well, I guess that's true." And she was like, "You need to go." So I got a plane ticket and I flew down there. And it was Ash Wednesday of all things that the audition was on. So it was the day after Mardi Gras had ended.
Oh,
And
jeez.
yeah, I know. The whole city is just reeking of hangover. And I'm there, fresh and ready to try and get a job. And it was interesting. I walked into the hotel where they were having the callbacks, and there were just 6'5" skinhead dudes and King Kong Bundy looking guys and guys that just look like absolute rednecks. I play the part of the racist
Yeah,
in
I saw that on your on
the
the
movie.
in the
Yeah.
credits and on your IMDb. That's like what it literally says. The role you play is the
Well,
racist.
literally, that was what was on my trailer. Was racist. So they didn't even give me a name until after I had finished wrapping the movie. So that was definitely some stuff to contend with. But going in there, and I had on jeans and a t-shirt, and when I got in there, and uh, I just remember there were just a lot of people there. I was doing my best. I was really angry about the whole situation at that point. I mean, I think I got there at like 9 a.m. and the audition was at 6 p.m. It was just a
Just
long day. And
waiting all day
you know,
just to see if you get the
yeah,
part.
just to get there, and you're like, these guys look way more like the racists than I do. Um, but and I left and I went and hung out in New Orleans for a night, and it was great. And then it was something like 2 or 3 weeks later, I got the call. And when I actually got the role, I asked Craig Perry, who was one of the big producers on the film, well, why me? Why am I here? And he was like, you seemed like the angriest person we had ever met down deep. Like there was just genuine rage about you. And and also I really like the Signal. So I was like, all right, well, these are all tying together.
So, how did you feel about playing a racist character in Final Destination 4?
Well, for
If you don't
one,
mind me
again,
asking.
you hit it on the nail there. I'm playing a character. So, these are not values that I hold down deep. They are things that, you're called upon to do. It's something that you're calling upon a deep, dark place in the human psyche. And it's actually not very hard to find that stuff in the deep, mucky parts of people. But I had to do some things to really protect myself. I moved slower. I feel like I had to, be kinder. I read Schindler's List while doing it. I've got these fake tattoos of swastikas and stuff on, so I've got to do things that kind of counteract that stuff because it's ugly. You really like your coworkers, and Michael T. Williamson, you're saying these horrible things to him, and it just sucks. Which is also why in the death scene I like to bring a little an edge of a little bit of comedy or levity to it, so that it's got something that like this guy deserves this. He's got it all coming, man. If anybody does, it's definitely him. And that's rewarding. And nobody on set you know gave me any flack for my personal beliefs or anything like that. Although I did have a couple extras walk up and ask me if those were my real tattoos. And I'm like, yeah, because they hired a genuine 100% racist for this role. So, yeah, they went for authenticity here. I don't think that's what they call a safe work environment. So,
No, no, definitely not. So I looked that you did some stunt that you've done some stunt work. Did you actually do that whole stunt where your character's getting dragged across the road, lit on fire by the tow truck?
you know, I I did. I did. I'm going to say a good 75% of it because I had already been doing stunt work. I actually was part of a stunt team in Atlanta called Black Knight Stunts, and we trained a lot. And I had been a part of a lot of physical combat and knew a lot about guns and, all those kind of things. Now, I had never done a fire stunt though. But when I got to uh, New Orleans to do it, and we got on the day, and I talked to Jeff Dashnell, and from Brand X Stunts. And I told him, what I had done and where I was at. And he was like, okay, well, you know what? And so we went through the full, put on the gel and the thing, make sure that it's as safe as possible. So they let me be literally dragged by the truck, lighting on fire all the way up to my waist and almost my chest. So because you get that really good shot of it sideways where you can see my face and all of that kind of stuff. And then they have to cut. I asked them if I could do the full burn, but they were like, dude, you've got lines. We can't risk you having like burned eyelids and lips and things like that for the rest of the shoot. Which I think was a good call. I have definitely learned, even in my go get them spirit of wanting to, do your own stunts, that let the stunt guy get his money, let him earn
Right.
his part,
Let him get
and so
burned.
the full head burn, and when you see the long shot, that's definitely my stunt man, which I'm very grateful for his work for that movie. And but yeah, man, I got to do my own, get dragged by a truck and be on fire for a while. And they definitely said, if you actually begin to get warm, it's too late. The gel they put on you is freezing cold. And so actually it's a colder stunt than it is a hotter stunt when you are on fire, which was really interesting to learn. So
What did it feel like? Was that your first time ever being lit on fire for a stunt before?
for a stunt, I think I'd been on fire a few times before that, but not necessarily for a film. Yeah, it definitely was. But the people around me believed in me. As I said, had done prior stunt work for fun and little profit. And so I knew how to take directions. They were professional and set up. Everything went off. I think we did it three times, maybe four. And every time it went off without a hitch. And what's interesting is Jeff came back was there when I went on the set of Godless for Netflix. And this is years and years later. And from that, he absolutely knew what I could do. So I have a big bar fight with the lead character, and he let me do it all. He knew what I could do. He knew that the experiences that I had brought to it, he believed in me because he had seen what I was willing to do and what I could do. So it's really interesting who you end up finding again on these films. You never know. That's why you got to be a decent person and try and
Okay,
practice some
godless. So,
gratitude.
westerns. It seems like it from what I'm looking at. So it's a western series.
It is a Western series. It's on Netflix. It's from I think it came out in
17,
2018,
2000.
17. Okay,
Yeah.
there we go. Yeah, it's been a couple years, but at the same time, it's a town full of women. All the men have died in a horrible mining accident, and then Jeff Daniels and our group of desperados basically come heading into town to take it. I mean, it's a town full of women, and of course, we've underestimated the tenacity of the ladies there, and it's fantastic, man. I'm really proud of that particular work.
Nice. I imagine you had a lot of fun, especially since you were able
Oh
to do
man, you're riding a
your own stunts
horse in New
again.
Mexico, and you get to work with really great people. So,
What was the name of the character you got to play as?
uh,
If you can remember.
Floyd is the name of the character. I was the tracker for the gang, the one-eyed tracker. So I actually had one of those faded contact lenses
Oh,
in, so which is that's my man. That's me, man. And you can't actually see it, but on the back of my hat, I've got a rattlesnake head, which is one of the reasons I chose that particular hat. And I was like, oh yeah, this is the stuff. But I got a smaller and faster horse, and which was really fantastic. I mean, all of the Wranglers were. I mean, I knew how to ride a little bit, but we really had to learn how to be up on that horse and look like you belong there. And so we were there for months. And yeah, it's not like I became a natural horseman. I'm no Dothraki or anything, but I definitely grew to love being out there. I mean, when you're shooting in the New Mexican wilderness and you're riding with a bunch of desperados, you don't have to do a lot of character work. to bring it out. It's all right there for you.
Nice. So what was it like wearing the blind contact lens?
It was pretty horrible. I don't wear contact lenses, and so, but luckily they always had somebody on set that could help me out to put it in and take it out, because that's the big thing with all the dust that's out there, and there are a lot of factors that you don't really think about.
Not to mention the
Actors
heat.
having to deal with. What was that?
Not to mention the heat, I'm sure.
Well, the heat, and then I mean, we started shooting in August, and we didn't even end until November. And by November in Santa Fe, it's freezing.
Oh,
So
geez.
we've gone from one to the other. You've gone from, oh my God, I'm sweating in these leather things, to I need more things under my leathers because I'm freezing freaking cold. And then there were the up close. There's the one that's totally blind. You can't see out of it at all. And then there are the ones for the further away shots where I can actually see shadows and a little bit of color. And then, of course, for long shots, I didn't really have to wear it because they couldn't tell. So, but the up close one was the bigger, thicker contact, and that one, you can't see anything at all through, and so your depth perception is kind of thrown off, and you just move through it. You use everything that you got, and that was definitely. And the fact was that with the contact, we actually, the fight that I end up doing in the bar wasn't in the original script. It's something we created, and because I had done that stunt work, and because it was kind of moving through the action, we were able to, with the director and Jeff from Brand X, we kind of created it and showed how he lost his eye, and how the hero basically beat him to the point of blindness, and that's how he leads the gang. And yeah, it's a pretty great moment in the series. And I was, you kind of show up and show people what you can do, and they either pick up with it, or they go on to something else. And I was really lucky that we went with that. It was a lot of fun. So.
Nice. Before I ask another question, when doing stunt work, have you ever got hurt or injured or anything like that while performing
Sure,
stunts?
sure. But usually it's the prep for the stunt while you're practicing. While you're trying to move. I've done things like falling onto concrete and bruise the bones of my elbows or things like that. I've gotten hurt worse doing things in theater, where you're trying to throw it all out there on the stage, and suddenly, there's something wrong with my leg, or, those sort of things. But I've been really lucky because I've had great people to work with, and, doing stunt work is dangerous, and you've got to really prepare and have good people around you. And it's not about doing the stunt once. It's about being able to do it over and over again. And that's why all the great preparation and work and skill comes into it. And I'm a great admirer of stuntmen and the stunt profession in general, because it makes all this stuff on film look easy. And that's the point. When you go, oh, during a fight, that's because somebody did their job
I
really
mean,
well.
which actually brings me to my next question. Any advice for those who are considering on wanting to get into stunt work? Like they've never done it before, but they want to consider. What kind of advice would you give for first time people, men or women, who want to get into stunts?
I would say, first off, make sure you are training as much as to get your body to being the tool that it can be. And you're not going to be able to do all stunts. I worked with people who are martial artists. I'm never going to be a supreme martial artist. But then again, I know how to use a sword, or I'm really good with guns, or things like that. And I was really lucky to get to do the fire stunt. But I also kind of look back on it, and I'm very glad that they showed me that this guy has done hundreds of fire stunts. That's why he's going to do the full burn. Listen to the people around you. Take the advice of people who have been there and have done that. And yeah, I mean, they've got this, story. Tom Cruise, tells stunt coordinator what he wants to do, and then the stunt coordinator tells him that's impossible, we shouldn't do that. And so Tom Cruise fires the guy and gets somebody that'll agree with him, and then he does the stunt, and that's great. Hey man, the stunt's on film. He's running down, he's got a single cord on him, and that's all great. But if anything at all had happened, that's it. Tom Cruise dead, business over.
Or
You know, that
seriously
that
injured?
that's it, man. And everybody holds that up to how cool Tom Cruise is. And hey, man, that's great. I have great respect for you doing your own stunts, and you have the ability to do it. That's part of your brand.
I mean,
But for individual stuntmen and women, stunt people, that is not the case. You know, you need to really listen to the people around you. And if you feel it's not safe, really, don't do it. You
I mean,
know,
if you want a
life's
good
not worth it. It's
example,
just a movie.
look at Kane Hodder. I mean, the dude's got like a good chunk of his body burned because of a stunt that went horribly wrong back in the 70s.
Sure, man. Yeah, and I mean, I've met Kane briefly, and those are the kind of things that, everybody's got scars. Was it worth it? It's great if you made it through and you're able to, tell the story later on. But there are people that can't anymore because films have been moving too fast. I mean, it happened to on The Walking Dead. A friend of mine lost a good friend on that show because there just weren't the number of people that should have been on set to protect him. And at the end of the day, somebody loses their life over a television show or a film or gets horribly burned or, a chunk torn out of them. That's tough, man. But that's also the risk. You're going into it and that this is a possibility.
That you're gonna
That's
get hurt.
that's it. Inevitably, it's like they say about a motorcycle. You get a motorcycle, eventually you're going to have to lay it down. You're gonna have to put it on the ground at some point. But the hope is that you can minimize, the circumstances and the damage that could incur. So I say definitely hone your tool. The other one is just be humble, be grateful to be on the sets that you are. Go and meet people. From what I know, much like my industry, but even more so, it's who you know and how you connect. Do they like you personally? Do they want to work with you? You might be the world's greatest actor or stuntman, but if people don't like being around you, yeah, then eventually you're going to miss out.
Build
Because
friendships and connections basically, and make sure if they like you, there's that chance that they may want to work with you again, or they want to work with you.
yeah, and you've got to be genuinely you. You can't just come up and be a sycophant or just tell them what they want to hear. They want to meet real people. You're going to be with these people for a long time, and they'd rather know who you really are. So, yeah,
No,
that's what I've got.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think, just like what I do on here is like if I build good connections with people, that means there's a chance that they'll want to work with me again, or they'll, show me people that I've never even got the chance to even know of or heard of.
100%. And that's why I like doing some of these conversations, especially, as the technology improves and we're able to reach out more. I think the pandemic actually helped that. We're more willing to go online and talk over Zoom or Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is. And and just continue the conversation, open up to it. And that's one of the reasons that I'm here, man, is that I've been kind of trying to come out of this post-pandemic shell and really get to talk to people again because I'm excited for the work that's coming.
Oh no, I'm sure you're looking forward to it. Before a few other questions, guys, what's probably been back to the stunt one? What's probably been your favorite stunt that you've ever done before, whether it was a TV show or a movie?
Hmm. Riding that horse sometimes sure felt like a stunt. Even though you're just riding a horse, you're riding full hell for leather. And boy, it feels like one step in a gopher hole and your life is over. But probably the fire stunt Final Destination. That one is definitely my biggest on screen stunt that I've ever done. And definitely being on fire, being dragged by a truck, that's pretty up there. I wasn't 20 something doing that. I was definitely 30 something doing that, and it still holds in my mind.
I feel like the older you get, your body's not, as limber as it used to be. So doing certain stunts can definitely either cause some injury or worse.
Well, yes, and hopefully that's all mitigated again by professionalism, and I still do a lot of physical work and training and things like that so that I can keep my tool, my body in a good and pliable place. But yeah, man, the older you get, you're just going to ache longer. You're not going to be able to recover as fast. And that's just what it is. And when we had some stunts to do, say the guy goes flying off the horse, I'm going to let my 20-something stunt double do that because that's his job and definitely not mine anymore. I don't need to vie for that. I don't need to prove anything to anybody. Let that guy pick up his paycheck, man.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. And I think having stunt people on set, especially younger ones on set, is better because, like you said, the actor may want to do it, but then, if that actor gets hurt, then well, there goes who knows how long of shooting.
Exactly. I mean, that's really it. And inevitably things do happen. It's just the way of things. The longer you shoot, the long hours, any number of things can happen. And stunt people of all ages really are able to help. I've found some of the young guys that I've gotten to work with, they just motivate me. They really, they're nice people. They're there for you. They look great in your costume. And I did a MacGyver once where I got to do this great fight with Lucas Till, and I know Lucas from Dance of the Dead back when he had barely made any films at all, and now he's in X-Men and things like that. And we got to have this fight, and it was great. But then you need to let the stuntmen do it twice as fast, and they're going to intercut with all the stuff they can see your face in the good part of the fight, and then they're going to show how awesome those stunt guys are wrestling around at twice the speed that you can manage. Because as good as I can do it, they're they're definitely far better than I am.
Oh, I believe it. Another question I want to ask is about another horror movie you played. You got to play in the horror anthology series VHS Viral.
Yeah,
What was
yeah.
that like playing in a horror anthology film? And I believe the role you played was Dante in the segment Dante the Great.
Dante the Great. Yeah. That was, well, for one, I was working with Greg Bishop again, and I think that was our third or fourth film by that time. We had done Other Side, Dance the Dead. Maybe this was the third big one we had done. But I mean, essentially we went at it with Greg Bishop, who is a great friend of mine, and our team Black Knight Stunts. And we had already tied all that. Black Knight came out of doing Greg's movie Other Side, The Other Side. And I mean, we were literally doing these stunts for ourselves and for the movie. And my good friend Nils Onsager looked at me before we yanked him out of a truck that was moving and was like, "Hey man, maybe we ought to get some people together that know how to do this stuff." And flying out of the truck. And it was great to get all those people together. I was already living in LA and I flew back to Atlanta and we filmed it there in the big studio that we had for Black Knight Stunts. And it was just wonderful getting to work with Greg and all my friends from the stunt team. It was a laugh all the time. I mean, of course, it's hard. All movies are hard, especially on a small budget. Indie budgets are one of those things where you're having to create despite all problems. No matter what comes up, you're going to have to do it. And yeah, before we went, actually, I met up with Greg at the Magic Castle out here in LA, and we sat in a corner and had dinner. And there was a poster behind us that said Dante, and it was a magician from way back in the early 1900s. And yeah, it was awesome. It felt like a sign. So I definitely did some studying of magicians and some of their movement, and I was already really into H.P. Lovecraft and Aleister Crowley and things like that. So I kind of studied some of their words and tried to bring that in. It's all about this cursed cape, and I kind of saw that as a connection to the elder gods or this dark magic that would consume things and bring me my luck. And so, yeah, it's a great experiment. And I think actually our stunt cape, because we had one that was the show cape and we had rented that and it was really awesome and did all the frills and things. But I think the actual stunt cape is mine. It was like my personal cloak. So, yeah, that's the one that got to deal with all the fire and, anything that we were doing that was a little more dangerous.
Yes, I mean, from also playing in shows like Justified, I mean, you've definitely like done a lot of like action stuff, whether it be for horror or something more serious.
I mean, I love that stuff. I really do. I mean, it kind of comes with the turf of being a bad guy, and in the movies, try to be a good person, but be a good bad guy in the movies. But also, so much indie film has to avoid that kind of thing, or they've got one thing in it that's going to be it, because they don't have the resources, they don't have the connections. And we specifically set out to bring action to indie film, and so I had a lot of training. Again, this goes back to being able to hone your instrument, being able to become a better physical specimen, so that when the time comes, you're able to throw it out there. Now, make no mistake, I sure like throwing my buddies into my costume and making them do some of my stunts too, because there's nothing like making your friends do what you're like, hey man, I'm the face.
You're
I can't get hurt. I'm going to deliver these lines, man. Go ahead, Phil.
Which brings back to the Final Destination, where they basically only had you halfway lit on fire because they still want you to,
Of course. I mean, it literally, I think, was the second thing I shot, and we did it over 3 nights. And, I was really ready to go, but they were right. I mean, we had another good 6 weeks of shooting to do, and, it was all my lines and all my interaction in the movie that, you actually get to see. So,
And now for the clothes, was that your own clothes, or was that clothes that they provided on set? Because I know sometimes actors will, have their like use their own wardrobe for movies.
the only, let's see, the Signal, Siren, which I also did with Greg Bishop, and some of Dante the Great, I guess, because it was my cloak and things like my shoes. I think those are the only things I've ever done. Oh, and in Justified, I used my own combat boots,
Nice.
because they fit my feet, and they were lucky. So I think those are the only things I've really provided costume wise. Usually, yeah, that's somebody else's job to bring to me what I'm going to wear, and also the stuff I had to wear, they had to be able to duplicate a lot of, because not only is it on fire in this part, but it's only halfway on fire, and this time it's all on fire. This time it's not on fire at all.
Multiple
So yeah,
outfits with like different scenarios kind of thing.
100%, man. I mean, that's once again, you're not doing the stunt once, you're doing it many times. You've got to have the same thing for outfits as well, and the same goes for like fights where there's blood. If you watch like Wrath of Khan, you see the weird continuity of Kirk's blood stain moving
Hmm.
around his costume, and that's a famous one. But that's the sort of thing that a good costumer will find and correct, and they've got to have multiple ones. So the bloodier you get, the worse off it is.
And like you said, you also do like when it comes to playing certain characters, you also do your research, get an idea of like what they're like, or what other people, or what other well-known people, like you said, for Dante the Great, you did your research for that, you did your research for your character in Final Destination 4, and I think that's not a bad thing. I think feel like it gives the actor more of an idea of what they should do on set.
I mean, that's really the job of the actor, is to enrich the part, no matter what it is that you're bringing to it. I mean, even a line or two can have some depth to it, but that's the fun stuff, is finding a wealth of information that, even if it's not going to be on the screen, it's there in your performance, because you know more about this person. I mean, there's the great Stanislavski, and well, what's in your pockets? Do you have in your pockets the stuff that this character would have? And I mean, sometimes it's amazing to drill down to that stuff. I always loved that with Justified, because there's stop, start, cut, go. But I always had, whether it's going to be something like a lucky item, or I always carried a bullet in my pocket for Carl. I mean, it was just something that always reminded me that he was dangerous. Whether or not that was something that really he would have had in his pockets or not. Most of us have change or a lighter or something like that. But yeah, that's the stuff. Do your research. That's part of the job of the actor, man. And it's kind of part of the best part, because you're prepping everything for when you go on set, and there's no time to do that when you're on set. You have other jobs to do. So it's all pre-production and in your downtime that you're able to bring that. I mean, even for the monologue I did for Godless, I had this long piece of tracking information. I had to get off the horse and walk in front of the other actors and then just say this kind of convoluted, he could have gone this way or over this river or over this. And I worked on that for a month so that when the day came, I mean, they did this long shot. You've got Jeff Daniels in the background and all the other guys, and it's this long shot of me walking up there, and it's close up on my face and looking at these guys. And if you get it wrong, you got to reset. You got to do it all. And I think I did it 3 times, but I nailed it the first time. And I think that's really when the director was able to put more faith in me and give me more to do in the show. He saw that I was ready, and I was ready. I'd done my work and had worked on it. It sounds like a long time to work on a monologue, a month, but if it's as natural as it can be, then that's the stuff, man. That's what you work for.
I mean, I think it's kind of cool when you hear these stories how actors can nail the line the very first time and not have to like do it over and over again. Like the fact that they can get it on the first take is impressive. It's nothing short of a miracle.
Yeah. I mean, and things happen. I mean, I think we did it another 2 times because you always want safety. You never know what happened in that first take until you go back through it with a fine tooth comb. So yeah, you've always got to do it a few times, but it definitely felt good to come out and have everybody kind of applaud when you've done your thing and they know that you're serious about your job and that you're able to do it with 100% of yourself and your skill.
Oh, most definitely. Now, a question I've actually started recently asking when I do these special guest interviews: have you ever attended conventions as a guest before?
I have. It's been a while. I mean, obviously, we had a long pandemic, so it's been a little bit of time. I've gone just to have fun. I've also gone to support other people. I have done some guest work before after the Signal and some of the other films, but it's definitely been a long time. I'm a little more concentrated on my work. I would love to do more conventions. I think that really comes with something that you do that really lights up a particular fan group, and that's it. That's what's great about horror is horror fans are some of the best people in the world. They're just so dedicated, loyal, and interested, and
Definitely.
appreciative of you being there. And they're just the best.
Do you remember what I mean? If you can remember that far back, do you remember what your very first guest appearance was for a convention or any kind of event?
I'm sure it was in Atlanta. I'm sure it was one of those that was, whether it was Dragon Con or it was something like that. It's been a long time.
Nice. So probably like another 2 more questions here.
Sure, man.
What sort of advice would you want to give to those who are wanting to consider and get into acting?
I'll go to the great idea that if you love anything else, go do that, because it is a struggle. No matter what it is a industry of rejection. You have to know more about yourself and believe in yourself more than that rejection. And it's not always personal. For the most part, it's not personal, but it's going to feel personal. And that can be entirely discouraging no matter what level you are. I would definitely say study, train, go to classes, find somebody that you really jive with. And it's like a therapist. You got to find something that you really like doing. Just because they're the best at what they do might not be the good fit for you. You need to find some method and something that really connects with you. One of the things that I've actually done when I got out here to LA, I never really learned in my drama degree or even doing film anything about how to audition. And so I ended up taking some classes that were focused on auditioning and what it is to come in and actually learn to audition. What sort of, not just the prep of learn your lines and come in, but you kind of have to normalize the stress and the unease. I mean, it's a totally alien situation to walk into a room and go, "Hey guys, how you doing?" And then be this person that is just, somebody completely different than you are, especially if you already know them. But they know that too. And it's not necessarily every audition is just not going to be your best. It's just the way that it
It's just like
is.
it's basically like a job interview. You may not get it, but that doesn't mean you
It's
should give
it is
up.
a job interview, but it's also your chance to get out there and show your stuff, and you're going to be excited and you're going to be nervous, and then you forget a line, and then things just happen. And so what you're trying to do is normalize that whole situation as much as possible so that you can do your job the best that you can. And if something happens, you learn a little bit more about, oh, hey, is it all right if I start again? Or hey, you kind of got the camera over there and it's not in my eye line. Would you mind if I moved over here? You move the camera a little bit. I mean, talk to these people. They're just human. They may deny your request or whatever it is, and you just got to roll with that. So working on audition technique really helped me out, because I would go in and I'm like, I'm talented, I'm good, and then the room is all screwed up. It just looks weird, or it feels weird, or I forgot a line, and then I'm not able to recover, and you go out and you're like, stupid, 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 and you can't do it. You've got to be able to find a way through that, and try and make it the best opportunity that you can.
I totally agree. As a friend of mine put it, and they put it pretty, I mean, it's a different comparison, but like when it comes to auditioning, you have all these other people who are auditioning for the same role. You're not really, as they put it, you're not competing against them. You're competing against yourself.
I believe that that's true. I also, you don't know what you're competing against. I mean, those people that are there in that room, there might be 30 more people that they're considering, or they may already have somebody more famous than you, and they're just obligated to hold the auditions. Just in case. You never know the decision making process. So all you can go in there and do is do your work before, go in, do your best, and then try and leave it at the door, because you never know. I auditioned for the fourth season of Justified 4 or 5 different times and didn't get on the fourth season, and was completely baffled because I felt like I was good for the roles. And then they called me up before the fifth season and was like, we just want you on the show. We're not really sure what we want you to do yet, but we want you on the show. And I was blown away by that.
I mean, it
They had
shows that they
literally,
like you enough to have you want to come back here and there.
not only that, but they had saved me. They didn't blow the entire, like, I didn't do one episode, I did 20 episodes.
That's
I was
impressive.
able to, yeah. So they liked me enough to put me in pocket and to save me for something better. And you never know when that could be happening.
No, I totally agree. And that's like the first time I've ever heard of like classes where they like basically teach you how to, nail an audition. I've never heard of that before.
Well, I'm out
I
here in
always heard,
LA,
I
and
always
so we
heard of
probably
acting
got every type of
classes.
class that there is.
Oh, I mean, LA is like, it's the place where you make it or break it. And I know a lot of people, I don't know people personally, but I've like heard stories where people have gone out to LA to try to make it big, but then they just like after one audition, they think, oh, well, that's it. I'm gonna go back to so and so town and never do it again.
Sure. And that's the stuff that I feel like is really about your preparation within yourself. You just have to know yourself well enough and believe in something that you are to get through that. I definitely came a little bit later than everybody else, but I had already had a body of work.
I mean,
So I
you
knew
did like you did theater stuff.
I did theater stuff, and I'd already done film by then. I'd done Final Destination by the time I got out here already. And so I was a proven asset to myself and to the industry. And it was the sort of thing that when I showed up, I knew that what I wanted to be was in the game. You're going to make it. Well, what does that mean? What does it mean to you? To me, it means having a fulfilling life and being able to work throughout my life, hopefully with the best quality of health and with the most interesting artistic people that I can. And some jobs you're going to do for them, and some you're going to do for you, and some are going to make you money, and some aren't. And if it brings you fame, that's awesome. But if you are coming out to find fame, you're probably better off trying to be an Instagram influencer than an actor.
And as David Fielding once said when I interviewed him, he was saying, it's not always about like, well, I may be misquoting. It's not always about the money. Do it like you said, do it for you. Don't do it for anyone else, kind of thing. If you're going to make money, that's great. But enjoy what you do.
That really is it, man. And I mean, some jobs you're gonna do, and it's gonna make you money, and that's awesome. And if the money is there, that's fantastic. But I have definitely learned that you have to pursue the things that are really going to fill your heart up and going to interest your mind and make it worth it to get up in the morning. It's just like any other job. If you were just a miserable person being out there, then the money doesn't mean anything. I mean, now don't get me wrong, money helps. You know, it definitely is like no other job. But it's funny because people are like, oh, you make all this money when you're out there. But when you think about the amount of time that I get to work and all that I've had to do to prep to get to that job, it works out.
I mean, I
You
believe it, but
know?
I'm sure there have been times where like when an actor doesn't get like a role, and I'm not sure if this happened to you, where like if they don't get a role, they have to like finally like an actual like job, like to help get by until they get another callback or
And all
something.
credit, man. I've had hundreds of jobs. I've roofed houses, I've painted walls, I've dug ditches, I've done everything, and you have to survive in this world somehow. And all credit to people that work. That what I do on stage or on screen or anything else, that is work. I'm starting a podcast right now with a good friend who's already on Sirius XM, and we're beginning to
Well,
develop this amount of material.
that's a pretty big radio brand.
It's great, man. I mean, we
I
are
haven't.
doing a show called Cargo Cult that is on Sirius XM Road Dog Trucking, and it's all about movies, and it's all about culture, and it's about travel and trucking and all these different kind of
Nice.
concepts. And my good friend Jimmy Mack, who I've known since college, he runs a show, and they've got a million plus listeners. And I mean, it's Sirius XM, so you've got truckers and Howard Stern fans in a lot of great ways. And but right now, it's not about the money; it's about developing a body of work and this conversation that Jim and I have, and it's fantastic. But I came home yesterday after about 3 or 4 hours of doing it, and I was exhausted.
I
I mean, your
mean,
brain's working, your mouth's working, and I never thought that the talkative two of us would ever get tired, but we were glorious.
oh, I can wholeheartedly agree. I mean, like, no disrespect. I give full credit to these content creators who can do this full time as a job, these actors who can do this full time as a job and not like do like a regular job like I do or anyone else does. Like, no disrespect. Like, if you're able to do that and have that as a full time career, more power to you because there's some of us who would love to do that but can't.
Of course. Now, I have worked all those hundreds of jobs to get to a place where I can give myself the space to try and do this full time. And hey, man, that could fall apart next year. That could fall apart in 6 months. Something could happen and blah, blah, blah.
It's
And
always
you
gonna
know
have a
what?
it's always
I
gonna have a
would go and
backup.
get a job.
It's always gonna have
That's
a backup plan.
that's it, man. I mean, in this country, we don't have subsidized art like they do in Europe, or you don't have a safety net in the same way. So if you got to work, go work, man. I mean, that's the way it is, and most everybody is going to have to do that for most of their lives. And I've been lucky, but I've also worked really hard to get where I am, and I continue to try and put that out there and have that work ethic, because otherwise, yeah, it's not going to last.
No, like I said, you're like out of all like every special guest I've interviewed has said the same thing, especially the acting ones. Like they've had actual jobs while they're waiting to, get another role for that other job.
Of course, man. The day I got Justified, I had $2 in the bank. Two, not one, not three,
But
two.
to
That's it. And I mean, and it's not like it saved my life, but it really was one of those things that I'm here in LA, and like, what do you do with $2? You can't even
and
afford a
plus,
cup of Starbucks coffee,
I mean,
man. I mean,
LA's a
you know,
really, excuse my language here, but LA's a really fucking expensive city to live in California. Like, you have to be like have like a high end paying job or be an actor or even a well known content creator just to get by for like the next year.
I mean, I could go on a whole rant on what LA is. I find that wherever you are, you make it work.
Oh yeah, no,
Somehow
wholeheartedly.
you find work, you do jobs. I mean, when I first got here, I was doing things like flowers for weddings and things like that. I mean, you do the jobs to survive. You got to do whatever it is,
Keep a roof over
catering.
your head, whatever.
Yeah, man. I mean that's it. But $2, and suddenly I'm just like, well, there's almost a freedom of that much poverty. Well, I really don't know what I can do now. I'm just going to, and then the phone rings and they want you on the show. And once again, I believe that that's sort of the universe kind of pointing the way and going, here, this is the direction to go. I'm not saying that it's something that's reached down and helped me personally, but I think that's all the work that I put into it, all the sweat and pain and effort, and I've put myself in the right place that when the opportunity strikes, I'm able to take advantage of.
Oh yeah, I mean, if the opportunity comes, take it, because if you don't, then someone else will be doing what you wanted to do.
And that doesn't mean take every job. I
No.
mean, you're not going to do every other job in the world that you're not good at. And I mean, just last week, I had to turn down a part because I was like, this isn't interesting to me.
It,
This
it's
is
it's
nothing new to me,
let someone else have it who probably will want it. And there's nothing wrong with that. For anyone who's listening.
100%. This is just isn't, and it's not even that it's not my brand. I don't want to say those things. It was another creepy, sex, oriented dude that's, this gas station attendant. And I was like, you know what? I feel like I've already done some of this stuff and other people will
And
do
you
it better.
and you want to try something new. And like,
100%.
for anyone who's
100%.
listening, if it's not something you want, don't take it. Like, don't feel like you have to take it just because it pays well. Like, if it's something you feel uncomfortable, don't do it.
Or even if you're like, I mean, there are a lot of times you're just like, I want to work. I'll go do anything, and then something like that comes up, and you're like, yeah, but maybe not that.
No. Let it
You
give
got
it
you've got to
let
listen to your
someone
internal compass about it.
let someone who wants it to take it, because they'll probably be more inclined to do a role that you're not, or a job that you're not.
100%, man, and they'll be happier to be there than you will be.
Oh, exactly. So one last thing before we end this, I was doing some research on this. You're be playing in a role as the character called Cesare Lombroso. Mind telling me a little bit about that if you can? I know there's like no release date for Soul Eater, but what you can tell me.
I think they've changed the name to the Chain or something like that. This was a movie that came up through, once again, mutual friends. I knew this great guy in the Netherlands, and he connected me to a producer named Scott Ingrati, and Scott was like, "I think I've got something in mind for you." And as it came up, it was a movie that they were willing to bring me on as one of the title characters. Cesare Lombroso, by the way, is one of the is was a real person. He is one of the founders of what we consider forensic pathology, even though most of what he did is completely outdated and wrong now. I mean, he was very into phrenology, the bumps on the
And
heads, and
and
how the physical aspects of people
yeah,
show whether they're really criminals or things.
for
And
anyone who doesn't
that
know
stuff
what
got used by
what
the
Cesare looks like, this is
yeah.
what actual Cesare Lombroso looks like.
There you go. I'm actually playing a younger Cesare who has just started out in this occupation, and yeah, his work got taken into the study of eugenics and things like that, but not by him. It's definitely a very outdated mode of thinking. But we actually they flew me to Italy, and I got to film up there in the Piedmont and in Turin and all sorts of just beautiful, crazy locations. I mean, castles and palaces that had never been shot before. And because our director, Stefano Mila, was from Turin, he was able to get these locations. I mean, we went to one of the King of Italy's hunting palaces, and the whole place inside is decorated with bones of animals that he and his party have killed and put up there on the walls in all these artistic ways, and it is just madness. So I have no idea when the movie is coming out. I look forward to seeing it someday. I haven't even really seen much of our footage, but we shot that back in 2019, and then of course 2020 hits, and so they've been doing
I
whatever they
mean,
can.
I'm like looking at the plot, and I'm like looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah. I mean, our locations were amazing. Our crew, most of them were Italian, and they were the nicest people I could have ever worked with. And it was also like July, so it was super hot. You're running around in wool garments because they were very period
The late
oriented
18
and
mid 1800s and
100%, man. But also, I'm standing across from this crumbling tower watching this person get hung. And, that tower was built by, in the 11th century. It's almost 1,000 years old. Again, it's just like when I was riding a horse in New Mexico. You're able to take that environment and just bring what you need. It makes it so much easier than if you're in a studio or it's all CGI and you're just kind of having to imagine everything. Then that's a whole different exercise than being in the environment and the landscapes that provide that
shooting
for
on
your
location, everything. It's
internal work.
I
Oh,
imagine shooting
and I
on
mean, Italy,
location.
right?
So it was actually sorry, I can always keep on thinking of another question. Was this the first time you actually got to travel to a different country to film, or if you're able to remember?
I think so. I think or at least a country that I really wanted to go to. I mean, a lot of times with horror movies or even westerns, you're out in these desolate places. No phone service, or it's some crappy trailer in the middle of just awful, awful places, and great for the movie. A swamp and things like that are amazing, but not really comfortable or fun to be in. But being flown to Italy and being able to be in these beautiful, exotic locations, and then of course eat Italian food and be part of the Italian culture while you're there. Yeah, just unbelievable. A really quick side note. So we went to this little itty bitty town, and there is a Templar temple that is kind of crumbled there. And there's a church that's literally called the Little Church of the Templar. And we filmed in there. And the only bathroom was next door at a little cafe. And, so we're getting coffee there and we're getting sandwiches and, using the restroom. And I guess it was about halfway through the day. And I go past their little magazine rack, and they have a copy of The Signal, my movie, The Signal. There's my
Nice.
face. And it is dubbed into Italian right there. I had to go get my co-star, drag him over there and go, this is the reason that I do movies. This is why I'm here. This little movie. I mean, we were in the middle of no place. And my producer bought it and gave it to me. It was
Nice.
just one of those things where, I mean, once again, it's like the universe going, hey, man, I know this is hard and I know you're out in the middle of nowhere, but you're on the right path. You know?
Nice.
Yeah, pretty neat, huh?
Oh
Got to
man,
fly all the way to Italy to find a copy of my movie.
that's pretty cool, man. So right before we end this, anything else you like to add in for those who are watching or listening to this?
Just keep at it. If you're passionate about what you do, nobody can take that from you. Only you can. Also, I'm just going to go ahead and plug my two podcasts that I'm working on with my friend Jimmy Mack on SiriusXM. We're doing one called Snake Pontchartrain's Places You Wouldn't Want to Go Unless You're with Snake Pontchartrain. It's kind of an adventure horror comedy, sort of an in-between Convoy, Big Trouble in Little China, and Escape from New York, with a little H.P. Lovecraft thrown in there. And then Cargo Cult, which will also be on SiriusXM and probably Pandora or something along those lines. And yeah, where we talk about culture, movies, books, music, all the great stuff, and that makes culture worth having.
Nice.
So
And all those links, including, if you want to check out his IMDb, all those will be in the description below.
oh, great. Yeah. Find me on Instagram. Don't hack me. That'd be nice.
Oh
You
yeah.
can find me on Twitter at Revolution23. And yeah, I love conversations with fans. And it's been great talking with you today, brother.
Man, thank you, man. Again, I'm Wayne the Unknown, joined here by Justin Welborn. As always, until next time, thank you for listening, and of course, thank you for watching.
Take care, guys. Bye.